All right, welcome back to the Be a Man podcast, where we encourage men to be better men. I have on with me Donovan. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good deal.
Why don't you introduce yourself for those who don't know who you are, and your social media accounts, all that cool stuff, podcasts, all that cool stuff. So introduce yourself.
For sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you for allowing me to come on and just have a conversation with you on your podcast. Anytime that somebody has invited me on their page, it's a big deal to me. That's something that I don't downplay because I know that God has called you to do what you're doing specifically. So the fact that you would trust me to be able to come on here and speak, I'm just honored, first of all, to be able to do that. So thank you, first and foremost, for you allowing me to come on here. But yeah, like Justin said, my name is Donovan Jones. I have a podcast myself. It's called Called to Act. Also have an Instagram account, Facebook, TikTok, all that good stuff. Basically, the three things that I'm trying to do is just encourage people, build people's faith, and point to Jesus. That's just the goal behind everything that I'm trying to do. And there was a time before 2020 where I just felt like I needed to do more. I rededicated my life, and it's just led to where we are now. And so it's been a blessing up to this point, and just looking forward to what God's going to do next. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. So so on your podcast, you have been doing a lot, and Instagram, all that stuff too, a lot around the topic of creativity, the arts, things like that. And I think it's something that the church was good at one time, but has not been good at more recent, I would say. Like there seems like there was this period of time where it's just, we're not very creative, it seems like. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually just talking to somebody about this the other day because I feel like we as Christians, oftentimes we downplay the creativity that we have. Like I remember I was talking to my mom about this a while back, and I told her, I was like, I said, I was never a creative person. And she just started laughing, and she was like, do you not see everything that you're doing, through your page and stuff? And I was like,
Yeah.
well, I guess so. And so like, when you think about that fact that when we ask Jesus to come into our heart, and when we are Christians, we are adopted into the family of God, and God is like the ultimate creator. So like, if he's the ultimate creator, we need to follow in his footsteps. It says in Genesis 1:26 that we are made in his image. So we need to follow after him. And I agree with you. It's like church culture is oftentimes, 10 or 15 years stuck in the past. And if we want to try to attract people, we need to unlock that creative side that we have, that all of us have inside of us, because it doesn't matter what you have at your disposal. Like when I started my podcast last year, I was literally recording episodes in my truck out in our driveway. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so just the way that God uses that, and whatever you have at your disposal, just use it and then just grow and get better. Like I'm not in the best space right now, but where I am right now, I'm thankful to just have this little area to call my studio. And it's like, I know that it's not going to stop here because I see where God has brought it so far. And so I'm just trying to do everything that I can with what I have at my disposal and just create whatever I can create and make it something that is not just appealing for the Christian. Cause I want to, like I said, encourage people, but I'm trying to reach the non-believer too. I'm trying to reach that person that's looking on Instagram and they come across a Bible verse and they're like, oh, this looks kind of cool. Is that Bible verse? Like, what is this? To kind of pique their interest a little bit, to at least get them asking questions like, what's the deal behind this?
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome. And I think it's much needed. And I do like the new setup, the new studio. It's looking pretty cool. And man, if you knew what I had, if I took my camera and spun it around, I'm in this little bitty corner. And I'm surrounded by tools, Christmas decorations, boxes, a little bit of sporting stuff.
That's that man stuff.
This little bitty corner.
That's man stuff right there.
Yeah, I brought. I think it's like my mother-in-law or father-in-law or somebody. They came over once and they're like, "So where do you do all your recording? Which room and all this?" I'm like, I took them down to the basement, showed them this little like den area that we have that's not finished at all, and they're like, "That's where you record?" Like, sure is, sure is. Yeah, and I had somebody tell me that the other day too, like the creativity, which I'm very administrative minded, but I've always liked, there's been this creative side to me.
Yeah.
that I enjoy it a lot, and I love seeing other people maximize those talents and skills. And I know one of those areas for you especially has been music, and you've
Yeah.
had a lot of really cool artists on. Maybe you could say a couple, and what's been some of your favorites?
Oh man, it's been yeah, sometimes I just sit and think about it because it's just like all God, like opening doors. Like I
Hmm.
know that nothing that I've done, my platform is not at the level, which I'm thankful for the people who listen and that support what I'm doing, but my platform is not at a level that any of the people that the Lord has allowed me to come on, they didn't have a reason to other than God just opening that
Hmm.
door. And all it's done for me is it's just built my faith to see, okay, I've seen what God has done. So I cannot put a limit on what God can do because he's opened these doors. Like I've been a big fan of Christian rap music for years. And I was before I
Hmm.
rededicated my life to Christ, I listened to secular rap. So that's just been always the kind of genre I was attracted to.
Yeah.
And I remember because I drive a truck for a living. I remember specifically in 2017, right around the time Zonti, I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Hmm.
him at all. He's a
Yeah.
Christian rapper. Like right when he started making music. And I remember seeing him on Instagram or something. And so I've been listening to him since then. And when I first got the podcast, I was like 10 or 11 episodes in. And I was like, I'm going to reach out to Zonti. But I'm like, there's no way he's. And then they emailed me back and they're like, yeah, let's do it. That's why I was like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Okay. So then once the Lord opened that door, I'm like, okay, I see that if you just are literally leaning into God, he'll just open doors for you. So
Hmm.
after I got Zonti on, I'm like, okay, God, let's try to get somebody else on. So I was able to get Paris Correas and then another guy named Tyler Hates Life. And then it just kind of built from there to the point where I was able to get Holvey on, which was the
Yeah.
biggest for me. And then Marty from Social Club Misfits, DKG Kai, Miles Minnick. I've had like 7 or 8 rappers on, something like that. Breno. And it's just been something that I'm trying to take full advantage of because, like I said, I know that it's not because of anything that I've done. I know it's because God's opened doors and it's for a specific reason. And so I'm just trying to look at everything that God's doing in and around my life and saying, I want to take full advantage of each and every opportunity. There's a reason that he's let me have these conversations. There's a reason that he's opened those doors. And I want to do everything that I can for him when he opens those doors for me.
Yeah, definitely. What's been maybe one of the funnier moments or funnier stories or one of the coolest moments that you've had with these guys?
Oh man, I think a couple come on. Do you know? I'm not sure if you know him or not. He played in the early 2000s. You know Chris Lofton? He
Yeah.
played basketball at
Oh
Tennessee.
yeah.
So I had him on, and that to me was like one of the biggest mind blows to me because I was in like fifth and sixth grade, and I remember skipping school to watch him play in the tournament because I
Oh
loved,
yeah.
Tennessee and Chris Lofton. He was my favorite player, and so I had him on, and I sent him the link to come on the podcast, and for whatever reason, it just wouldn't go through. Every time he clicked it, it would just put him as an audience member in Riverside. And I was like, oh my gosh! So I was freaking out because he told me he only had like 20 minutes to give me anyway.
Yeah.
And so I was like I was like, okay, so I created a different studio. I'm like, here, and I sent it to him. So then finally, the only way that I could get him on is I had to just send him like the audio version to where we just had it was like a phone call.
Yeah.
And so we were able to talk for a little bit, and I was able to ask him about the shot that he hit over Kevin Durant when Kevin
Yep.
Durant was at Texas.
Oh yeah.
And he said, yeah, he said, anytime Kevin Durant sees me, he said, he's always real respectful. And I said, yeah, you got to be respectful to your daddy. And so that was,
That's pretty funny.
that was, I loved that.
Yeah.
That was cool to me because that was somebody I always looked up to.
Oh yeah. That is
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
I yeah, I mean, I remember I liked Kevin Durant in at when
Yeah.
he was at Texas. He was just there's just certain guys that are just a little different. Like
Hmm.
why'd you go to college? Because you could have went pro right away. It's like seeing
Yeah.
LeBron in high school. It's like, dude, there's
Yeah.
not been many of you
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like since
Exactly. Yeah.
Jordan. And I grew up like late 80s, early 90s. So I saw the end of like Larry Bird's career, Michael Jordan's career, which I didn't like Michael Jordan because I grew up in Indy. So I was a huge Pacers
Hmm.
fan. So I was a huge Reggie Miller fan.
Oh yeah.
And still, I mean, he was, as far as like pure shooters go, he's probably up there just as one of the best. But
Hmm.
like, I remember seeing just kind of the evolution of the game as well. So there's always these like specific guys I just really loved watching, and there was other guys, man, I could not stand. Like I couldn't
Yeah.
stand the Pistons. I couldn't stand some of
Oh
these
yeah,
teams, man. It just drove me crazy.
dude.
But
Wasn't Reggie's last game against the Pistons?
it may have been,
I
yeah.
feel like it was because
He,
I remember him going down for that layup and Tayshaun Prince running up behind him and
that's
blocking.
right.
I
Yep,
was
that's
so
right.
mad because I loved Reggie too. Whenever he
Yeah,
played, yeah, I remember that game like it was yesterday.
yeah. He was. As long as you kind of look past his personal life, as
Yeah,
with a lot of those guys, Jordan, a lot of those guys were like that,
yeah,
like he was
hmm
kind of a horrible person off the court, but on the court, man, you knew you had a chance. And it was
yeah.
just, they never could quite get that core of guys together that could just take them over. It was the
Well,
New
they
York Knicks a few years.
I feel like that one year it was like the early 2000s when they had the melee with the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
I felt
Yeah.
like that was one of their best years because they had Jermaine O'Neal, Ron Artest, Reggie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate that happened
Yeah.
because those guys missed like the whole
I,
season the next year.
I'm laughing because I remember Jermaine O'Neal, like he was good, but anything outside, I mean, it was off. And he always tried to shoot threes.
Yeah,
I went to a game. I remember my dad got tickets, and we were at a game, and he was wide open on the 3-point line, like wide open,
for a
and
reason.
everybody yelled, "No!" Like through the crowds, everybody's yelling, "Don't shoot!" And he just started laughing. Like you could tell he heard it, and he just starts laughing and passed it off because it's like Shaquille O'Neal trying to hit a free
Mm-mm-mm.
throw. It's
Yeah,
just not going to happen.
yeah, you got about the same amount of chance of either of
Yeah,
those happening. Yeah,
yeah. Shaq
yeah.
was probably one of my. I saw a few games with him. He was probably one of my most favorite to watch. Because you talk
Live.
about live.
Yeah,
Because you just talk about somebody who was just massive, man, just huge individual. And I saw him shatter a rim once, so it was really cool. He was just, you could not touch the guy. I mean, it's like a
yeah,
football player playing basketball. He's just athletic enough to do it. So,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I like.
whenever I want to say I think it was my 21st birthday.
Mm-hmm.
I went up to one of my best friends from high school. He moved up to Indy after high school.
Yeah.
And so me and my little brother, for my birthday, my mom was like, I'll get y'all tickets to go see the Warriors because I wanted to see Steph Curry play.
Yep.
And so she's like, you can choose. Do you want to go to the Pacers or the Cavaliers? Because it was like a Friday Pacers, Sunday Cavaliers. So she was going to, whichever one you want to go to.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, I'll go to the Pacers because my boy Chris lives in Indiana. We can crash with him. And so we did that, and we actually bought his ticket too. So all three of us went. And so we get there, and we get in our seats and everything. We got pretty decent seats, and we're all excited. Me and my brother. I think my brother had a Klay Thompson jersey on. I had Steph Curry, and so we're sitting there, and like right before the teams come out to warm up, they're like, "Okay, one of the Splash Brothers is going to be out today with an ankle injury," and we like all look at each other. We're like, "Please, Klay Thompson, and they're like, "Steph Curry." And we were like, you
Oh,
got to be kidding me. And
oh.
so he was there, but he was just kind of dribbling around on the sideline in a suit.
Mm-hmm.
And Klay Thompson had like 40 that night, but it was
Yeah.
like we were kind of already down before the game even started because
Yeah.
we wanted to see Steph.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
stinks. Yeah,
yeah,
that's one of the problems with the NBA now is that like guys just don't play every game. And it's like and it costs a fortune to go. Like I
yeah.
can't take my whole family. I mean,
Oh
I'd be
yeah,
dropping $300-$400 easily.
exactly.
Probably more than that. But it's like, and then you don't know if they're even going to play. Like, it's annoying, I think,
Yeah,
and frustrating.
yeah,
But it is what it is.
yeah,
So let me switching back creativity. All right,
yeah,
how do you think in the church? Because in history there was a time period where, like even the Middle Ages, you see this. I mean, beautiful. Just paintings, stained glass. You see these beautiful ways that people used what they had at their disposal to be creative and do things to the glory of God. And it just seems like we lost that a little bit. But how do you think in the church today can people start using creative means to kind of take some of this back, use the arts to the glory of God again?
Yeah, what I see is a lot of Christians, well, really just anybody who has social media accounts, is people get so easily lost in comparison,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I get on Instagram and I see somebody's making all these cool videos or cool graphics, sometimes it's like, I don't even know if I want to try it because I can't add up to what this person's doing. And so I think for the Christian, we need to understand that we're trying to please the audience of one, right? We should just be trying to seek the approval of God. We don't need to be seeking the approval of man. And so when you're doing that, when you're saying, okay, I don't have all these things to make a great production or whatever, but Lord, I'm going to use what I have at my disposal. Doesn't matter what
Mm-hmm.
it is. Doesn't matter if all you have is just a cell phone. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you do whatever you can do to make it happen, to point to Him, and that's just what I've seen in my life. That the small things lead up to big things. It's not going to be something great right off the bat. It's probably going to suck right off the bat, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just like putting forth that effort. I'm going to do something for you, Lord. I've been thinking about that a lot. Is there's no excuse for us as Christians to be putting forth some kind of effort to be creative or to push the kingdom. I look at Acts chapter 4, verse 13. This is a verse that I use
Mm-hmm.
all the time, but I just love it because I relate to it so much because I feel that common uneducated man, like it says that Peter and John were when they're in the synagogue. But the thing about them that stood out was they spoke with boldness because they had been with Jesus. And when we have that relationship developed with Jesus, it doesn't really matter what the world is saying about you, then you can just do the best that you can unto Him, and He is just going to bless that. I've just seen that. If I've not seen anything else over the last year and change doing my podcast, I've seen that to be true, and it's just built my faith. And one thing that has really stood out to me, because I don't want to just read the Bible and not understand what I'm reading, or I don't want to see these
Mm-hmm.
parables and be like, what did that even mean? You know, because if you look at the parables that Jesus used and you look at the things that Jesus did, it was creative, like to pick up mud off of the ground and spit in it and then put it on somebody's eye to make them be able to see. Like that's creative, you know?
Yeah.
And so like I was thinking about this the other day, how, and I just lost my train of thought. Um,
Hate when that happens.
yeah. Um,
Dude, I've had it happen so much lately since I shared I had shoulder surgery. I know you knew. And
yeah.
I'd be sitting there and man, I had a hard time with anesthesia, really bad. It took me a long time to
Yeah.
come out. But then it took like a few days where I'm sitting there, my wife's asking me a question, and in my mind I'm saying, I know I should be answering right now, but nothing's coming out.
Yeah.
And then there's like a delay and then I'd answer. And I'm like, what is wrong with me, man?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
snap
Yeah.
out of it.
Yeah.
It's just that
But
time, man.
yeah.
I
Sometimes
hear
it
you.
happens. It's been a long day, but
Yeah.
yeah, I just think anything that you can do to point to God, I just want to encourage anybody that's listening to this right now, just do it because He's going to bless your efforts. Doesn't matter what you're putting forth. If it's unto Him, He sees it and He's going to bless it.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think, I mean, you are spot on. I think your point about it not being perfect at first, or maybe it's not as good as what you want it to be, or whatever. I mean, I like to think about it like I coach a lot of little league sports, my kids, all that stuff. I know one of your kids have been in basketball and different
Basketball.
things too. And
Yeah.
man,
Can I hold on? Can I stop you real quick?
yeah,
Because like, are you going to take that out when I said I lost my train of thought?
yeah, I can.
No, just leave it because that,
Okay,
like what you just said, like it's not going to be perfect. Like we're having this
yeah,
conversation right now, and
it's
that
good.
happens. You're going to have brain farts. You're going to have times where, okay, I feel like I'm in
Mm-hmm.
a fog. I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on. What direction do I need to go, Lord? So it's just like it's not going to be perfect, but it's just putting forth that effort. That's what God is seeking, like your
yeah,
heart, not your perfection.
that's good. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I just always picture like you got your little baseball team, your little basketball team. First
Yeah,
couple practice, you're like, dude, we're not going to win a game. This is bad, man. This is bad. But then
yeah,
you put in a little practice. About a couple practices in, you're like, all right, we may win one or two. We may be doing all right here. And sometimes that's how it is. Like sometimes it's frustrating, and you're like, man, what do I do and how do I get better? And then the more you do it, you learn from it and you keep moving on. And then you meet guys like you, for me, and like you help me point me to awesome resources that I can use, like that Canva app and
Oh
all
yeah,
this other
yeah,
stuff. And that's like super helpful, and making graphics. And I'm like, and then I'm looking at like the versus posts you do. I'm like, dude, why can't I do something like that? And then like Cody from the Of Sound
yeah.
Mind, I'm
Cody,
like,
he's
dude,
crazy.
man, he has all this cool stuff. He created the kind of the new logo look for I know for mine, I think for yours
Mine too.
too. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like, dude, that's awesome.
yeah,
Why can't I do something like that? And then you start looking at it and you start working at it a little bit. You're like, okay, maybe I can do something a little cooler. And
exactly.
and at the same time, I'm not going to do anything like he does. Like not exactly, and I'm not meant to do something like he does. Just like you're
Yeah,
saying, like you have this awesome podcast and social stream that has some awesome artists and people who are super creative, super fun to listen to, and there are avenues there that I probably will never have. But you had that opportunity to talk with them, and it's super encouraging to see people use the gifts, the opportunities that God's given them to point more people to Jesus, just like you said. And man, it's encouraging. It's very
yeah.
encouraging to see.
Well, and that's what I've been thinking about that a lot too, because, and I just remember what I was saying about Jesus, how I want to understand the parables and everything. So just to kind of go back to that a little bit is
Yeah.
like, the when he said, when Jesus told his disciples, like, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, it can move mountains.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that I found out about, like the mustard seed, it's the smallest, it's like a tiny little seed,
Mm-hmm.
but once that thing is planted and it grows to be like 30 feet tall. Right. And so,
Okay.
like, when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's cool because that's a tall tree. But the craziest thing about it to me was the fact that everything that God allows us to do in our life, we should be pointing to him and to where those around us can see it, because like it says in the word, it's like, give glory to your father that's in heaven, that people may see your good works and glorify
Mm-hmm.
your father which is in heaven.
Definitely.
So the thing about the mustard seed is the branches grow out 20 to 30 feet. Like, that's how our faith needs to be. Not only do we need to be
Mm.
growing in our faith, but we need to be branching out to reach other people, to encourage other people, to help them move along in their faith. Like you're saying about Cody and me and you and just all the people that we've been able to connect to. It's like, we're not just staying where we're at. Like, where you're at right now wasn't where you were at when you started your page.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And like,
Yeah.
you see the things that other people are doing, and we're not taking it as, okay, this person's trying to challenge me. It's like, we should be challenging ourselves to say, you know what, I want to step up my game because I want to be able to do these things. And that's how that iron sharpens iron. We're coming together and we're forcing each other to get better. And that's where that needs to happen in the church. Because if we are constantly challenging each other instead of just going into the church and just hanging out in the pew for an hour on Sunday morning and then just
Mm-hmm.
going about our business, but if we're going with the intention of, I'm trying to not only grow in my faith, but to grow alongside with fellow men, or if a woman's listening to us, a fellow woman, your friends, we're like, should be trying to grow and sharpen each other and get better at the things that we're doing. I'm doing things in my life right now that I don't think anybody else could do, because I feel like God has put me in this specific position. You're doing things in your life that I'll never be able to do because God gave that to you. And anybody that's listening to this right now, you have a specific calling on your life that only you can do. I can't do it. Justin couldn't do it. That's up to you to do. And God has given you unique talents and unique abilities to be able to go forth with the call that he has given you in your life. But it's just up to you to say, okay, Lord, I want to accept it.
Yeah. Man, that's really good. That's an awesome illustration too about the mustard seed. I just think the more we can encourage people to use their creativity, part of it too is, I mean, there's this whole discussion right now about Christian nationalism and some things
Yeah.
about that as well.
Yeah.
And I do think, and there's different takes on that, but I do think there is a need for more Christians to start or run their own businesses and use their
Yeah.
gifts that God's given them, because we are seeing more and more this social pressure that's coming down on us. And I think the more that we can encourage people to use their gifts, their abilities, and their skills to further the kingdom, but also just for other Christians, for the brotherhood, Like we need one another to do this. It's becoming more and more evident, more and more clear that we need one another to make it through this fight.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's all about. It's not you against the world. It's building that community together. I had somebody on a couple of weeks ago on my podcast, and I can't remember who it was to give them credit for this, but they said something like, if I'm moving up, if I'm leveling up, the people around me are leveling up too.
Mm,
Because it's not just me in this fight. Like, it's a community of people together. And once you find that group, it's like, no, it's all of us. It's not just me trying to stand out. Like, it's us trying to grow together to push forth the kingdom. And I just think that's what it's all about. Because, like, if you look at Jesus, he didn't come, he wasn't a lone ranger, right? He had his guys
mhm,
with him, he had his group. And even in the 12, he had his inner circle. So even if you just have two or three guys around you, if you guys are holding each other accountable and pushing
mhm.
each other to get better, like that's what we need. That's what we need.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that's good. Man, I enjoyed this. This has been really good, and it's gone really fast too. Uh, hey, your podcast. What can people expect? You got some exciting guests coming up, or what can people look forward to?
Man, I actually I'm excited about September because I think this is going to be the most powerful month of episodes that I've had so far. And I was actually just telling one of my friends that today. We were texting, and when I first started the podcast, I felt like I was looking for anything and everything I could find out about Jesus,
Mm,
because like I knew who Jesus was just from growing up in church and from
hmm
little devotionals here and there. But I was like, I want proof of Jesus, the human being, that he was here. I want
mm,
eyewitnesses outside of the Bible. You know what I'm saying? I want those type of things. And I was looking for that, but I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for.
mm,
And so, to make a long story short, I was praying about it and asking the Lord to help me find it. And I just felt like he was telling me, quit looking for it and create it yourself.
mm,
And so that, along with a couple other things that were happening at that time, that's what led to me starting the podcast. And that was February of 22. And so I felt like I needed to do a series about who is Jesus.
hmm
Um, and I've not done it up to this point, but it's coming in the month of September. And so I'm very, very excited about that because I feel like it's just one of the main reasons that the Lord has allowed me to do this. And if anybody's listening to this, if y'all would say a prayer for me, because that's something that I don't take lightly. And that's something that you don't want to mix up your facts in any way, because when you're talking about something as serious about talking about the savior of the universe, like, the one and
Yeah.
only son of God. So I'm like, it's something that I'm taking very serious, and I've been studying for it for like over a year. So I'm excited for that. And then I have a pretty big guest coming on at the end of September, Lord willing, unless he cancels on me. And I guess I could say the name, unless he cancels.
Yeah.
And you know him. We were actually talking about him before, Rick from Rick and Bubba.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah.
That'd be
So
awesome.
unless he cancels, yeah, we're gonna be talking at the end of the month.
Yeah,
So
that'd be awesome. Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited about
Hey,
that.
man, that sounds really exciting. That sounds really good, and it sounds like it'll be a good resource too, for others to point to. Hey, I mean, we can share, but sometimes, I found that different people can reach different people. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
sometimes you'll come at something a different way, or I'll come at it a different way, and it hits people differently, and I think it's going to be really encouraging. I'm looking forward to it. I always enjoy things like that, and man, I have to tell you, I've been encouraged by your guests. I've been encouraged by your podcast, uh,
Appreciate that.
and I hope people will go check it out if you haven't already. Hit up where's the best place for people to hit you up?
I'm
Insta
most
or
Yeah, I'm most active on my Instagram, and it's just Call
okay.
to Act Podcast, all one word.
Okay, yeah. So go hit up Donovan on Instagram and shoot him a message if you have any questions or whatever. Doesn't matter. Just hit him up. And
Prayer
I know you,
request.
yeah, prayer requests.
Yeah,
Please
anything.
pray for him and his family, everything going on in his life. And I think we all need that. We need to be encouraged. We need to remember to pray for one another and lift one another up in those ways. So, with that, Donovan, you know, last thing I ask people to do as we close, give the guys a challenge. Maybe it's this
Yeah.
week, maybe it's in a month, whatever, maybe it's the rest of this year. whatever it may be, give them a challenge.
I would just say draw near to God. I've been reading James over and over again over the last couple of weeks, and there's two verses in there that stood out to me the most. Is just that draw near to God, and He will draw near to you, and um, humble yourself before God, and He will exalt you in due time. And the other day, I drive, like I said, I drive a truck for a living. The other day, I pulled up to an electric gate, and as I was getting closer and closer to this gate, it wasn't moving, and I was like, "What in the world? Like, am I not close enough to it?" So I kept inching up to where I was right up to the gate, and then it finally opened. And as I was sitting there, I was like, "Oh wow!" Like it wasn't sensing my movement. A lot of us think that God just open these doors for me. I'm going to hang out right here while you open these doors, and then we'll do something. If God doesn't sense your movement, if you're not drawing near to Him, He's not going to open that door for you. So, the further back I was from that gate, I could have moved side to side, I could have moved backwards, but the fence was not sensing my movement. It only sensed me once I was right up on it. And if you get right up close to God, as close as you possibly can, even if it's just 1% closer today, if you could just get 1% closer, He's going to open doors for you like you wouldn't believe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really cool. That's a good illustration. You've been like fire with the illustrations today, man. That's really good. I might have to use that one on Sunday, but I like that. Yeah. Yeah. So, guys, go draw near to God. Um, trust Him, believe Him, use your creativity to God's glory. We need it. We need one another and to encourage one another. Donovan, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's always a pleasure. It's always fun. And you're one of those guys that I know I can text and I can say, hey, man, pray about this with me, and you'll do it. And you write me too. I can't tell you how much it meant to me when you checked in after I'd shared with you about my shoulder. And that's what this is all about, this brotherhood, this community. And I appreciate you, and I hope other people will go check you out too. You're a good guy.
Man. I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you're doing. The stuff that you put out every Sunday. Well, I mean, all the time, but the Sundays challenges.
Sure.
Man, lead your family to church. I love all that stuff. I'm thankful for everything that you're doing, and the things that you're doing. I do truly believe that only you could do. And it's just one more thing, and then because I know I'm kind of rambling
Go
here,
for
but
it.
I was talking to a buddy about this the other day and he said that if Paul was here, he'd be using Twitter, and YouTube and videos and doing stuff like that to try to reach people. And I said, you know what? I don't know that he'd be able to, because I feel like Paul, the position that he was in, he could only do what he was doing right there at that point in time. God is so specific where He has each and every one of us in time. It's just like you look at that fact and you're like, okay, that puts so much on me, the confidence that God has in me to get done the job that He has for me in this lifetime. Because you're only going to get one shot and one chance. So do everything that you can do inside your calling, and just like I said, draw near to God. That's just where I want to leave.
Yeah.
Where I want to leave your audience today.
Yeah, I can't think of any better way to leave it, because that's perfect, man. I appreciate you. Guys, go give Donovan a listen. Go check him out. I know he's encouraging to me. I think he will be to you. But until next time, go and be a better man.